And if you look at the stats of home ownership of 30-year-olds, it's collapsed if you compared it to 1983. All of the stats just show that they're just going to miss out on a big part of economic life, which is why so many people are driven towards speculative assets, because it's the only way of making it up. When you speak to somebody, I had this conversation today or yesterday, I'm like, why don't you invest in the S&P 500? They're like, how much does it make a year? 8%. And they're like, I'm never going to make enough money to retire or do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, they move to Bitcoin. Now what's happening, it's really interesting. Go and speak to a 33-year-old now and say, so, I presume you're long Bitcoin for the crypto cycle. They're like, that. 4x? Never going to make me enough money. I need to make 50x.
Yeah.
I'm not joking.
Yeah.
Due to changes in market dynamics, the rapid expansion of digital assets, and liquidity cycles, the global financial environment is about to undergo a revolutionary period. In a recent interview, prominent macroeconomist and cryptocurrency expert Raoul discusses these profound shifts. In this dynamic financial landscape, digital currencies such as Bitcoin and Ethereum are establishing themselves as major participants as central banks add liquidity to control debt and boost economies. Powell highlights the potential risks as well as opportunities for investors by focusing on how liquidity cycles are expected to affect the value of cryptocurrencies. In his exploration of the future of digital assets, he acknowledges the importance of Ethereum, but also makes the case for newer platforms like Solana and Sui, which may have greater short-term development potential. This interview provides in-depth understanding of how cryptocurrencies function as essential elements of wealth management plans. Watch till the end and remember to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more financial insights.
If the liquidity picture doesn't match what we're all expecting, the general thesis that I brought about was the fact that we need to refi the debts, and that liquidity has been cyclical and it's been measurable, and we've got a huge amount of debt coming. Yes, GDP growth is decent right now, so that does pay for a lot of those interest payments, but interest payments are very high. So for some reason, not only the US doesn't provide liquidity, because if you go back to the 16-17 bull run, the US raised rates once, went on pause, didn't do anything with liquidity. The Chinese did it all, and then the UK because of Brexit. And so it'd have to be all of them not doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
But the Chinese have already made it clear they're going to have to do something. So that's the difficulty I see is I don't see how nobody's going to do it, because inflation's imploding in Europe right now. It's just the Europeans are going to keep going.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. That's the only thing I can see is for some reason that whole liquidity story, the cyclicality doesn't work, but it's been working perfectly since the bottom in 2022. And really, when I look at the patterns and stuff with GMI, it's like I'm complaining because it didn't match last week versus, really with a bit of wiggling around because of flows or whatever, whether it breaks out this week or in 2 weeks' time, 3 weeks' time, makes no difference. But it should be that order of magnitude in terms of time. It's like, it's right here, right now.
Go time, yeah.
Everyone's looking for the confirmation of Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
and then everybody's going to get out the risk curve. I love ETH. It's great. My only ETH exposure is NFTs. So I've got a lot of high-end NFTs, which are only on ETH.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I'm a mercenary otherwise. It's like, what's going to outperform? I've been Solana, and then I've been switching towards Sui, even though I'm on the foundation. So I've been granted tokens, but I've actually been buying in the open market because the chart versus every cross rate versus Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and choose your token, and it's about performing. So I'm like, okay, this is the signal that this may be the next chosen one. ETH, I've been thinking through what happened with ETH. So the layer 2s obviously took away from the layer 1. Okay, fine. But what I'm thinking is really being built is something that scales much larger by having the layer 2s, and then they're going to go to this ZK roll-ups or whatever it's going to be. But they have a roadmap, and I think basically they've overbuilt infrastructure for where we are right now. And that's what it is. While Solana and Sui and other stuff are seeing the pickup in activity, ETH has basically built out enormous amount of block space. And as the market grows, I think, ETH, because it's security and all of the other stuff, will attract more flows. But it's probably going to underperform this cycle, underperform Solana, but I still think it outperforms Bitcoin. I look at that cross a lot. That cross perfectly works with the ISM. So as the business cycle picks up, that's alt season. Now, why is that? It's pretty simple, because everyone has a bit more money.
Yeah.
Because as soon as the ISM picks up, still below 40, below 50. So it actually says a big part of the economy is still slow and another part is racing ahead. So that means that corporate earnings are still slow. That means people's paychecks are slow. That means the bloke who owns the sandwich shop down the road, earnings are still a bit slow, all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. When it starts picking up, that compounding effect of the business cycle means more disposable income, means more investing. And then people go out the risk curve. So we still haven't got to that point. So we're still, and that's another reason maybe this whole breakout from the banana zone hasn't happened, is it really happens when the RSM crosses 50 to the upside. That's like a big signal.
When it comes to cryptocurrency investing, Raoul is methodical and forward-thinking, focusing on assets that have the potential to perform well. Although he recognizes Ethereum's advantages, particularly given his involvement in upscale NFTs, he advocates for a more pragmatic approach. According to Pal, Ethereum could perform worse than Solana during this cycle, but it may still do better than Bitcoin because of its robust security and dynamic development plan. He also looks at new developments in the cryptocurrency field, like how gaming platforms running on the Avalanche blockchain can encourage wider usage. Pal also highlights non-traditional elements, such as the function of meme currencies as potential drivers of future market momentum. Now, let's dive back into the interview for more of Raoul Pal's insights. But before we do, please don't forget to like and subscribe for daily videos like this.
Everyone confuses inflation and debasement.
Yeah, exactly.
Inflation is CPI, which is the rise of goods and services. That is nothing to do with, and this whole monetary inflation, if they just stop conflating the two things into one, they said there's inflation, which is usually a cyclical phenomena, and then you've got an occasionally structural because of, let's say, population or whatever, and then you've got debasement, which is a whole different game, and that's been going on. It's equally dystopian in terms of what it does to people, but they don't see it.
Well, the wealthy get wealthier and the poor are getting screwed.
Yeah, and what it means is, what is an asset? An asset is future deferred consumption. It's something you buy today. You get rewarded for locking up your capital by excess returns for the future, and for that you can spend it in the future. Now, what's happening is our future selves are getting poorer because you can afford less. The investment banker, 25-year-old investment banker now can buy a fraction. Well, he can't even buy the house because you can't even get the mortgage on it anymore. So then you're missing out on that whole rung. And if you look at the stats of home ownership of 30-year-olds, it's collapsed if you compared it to 1983. All of the stats just show that they're just going to miss out on a big part of economic life, which is why so many people are driven towards speculative assets, because it's the only way of making it up. When you speak to somebody, I had this conversation today or yesterday, I'm like, why don't you invest in the S&P 500? They're like, how much does it make a year? 8%. And they're like, I'm never going to make enough money to retire or do anything. So therefore, they move to Bitcoin. Now what's happening, it's really interesting. Go and speak to a 33-year-old now and say, so, I presume you're long Bitcoin for the crypto cycle. They're like, that. 4x, never going to make me enough money. I need to make 50x. I'm not joking. That's the other thing about Bitcoin is people don't really, we all get so in the day-to-day stuff. Really, what we've created is a globally homogenous asset, right? You're in FX markets. We think of like FX as globally homogenous. It's not. Go to a rice worker in the Philippines. They have no chance of buying dollars or pounds or anything. So it's not a product. Gold, yes, but the bid-offer spreads are so massive. This is the only one, and it's fractionalizable. So whatever you earn, you can put 10% of your income in. And there's also some random things like, you should keep your eye on stuff like Off the Grid, the new big game that's coming. It's on Avalanche. Okay, fine. Avalanche is not a chain that a lot of people use, but this game could be huge. That's a huge influx of people that we're not even looking at. And there's a bunch of the protocols who are building stuff like that. So it's like a mass market, abstracted away use of crypto that drives on-chain adoption, underlying value. So I think that's the other thing. It's not the obvious, it will come into the Bitcoin ETF and then flow through the market. It could come from a number of different places we're not seeing. Don't forget, at the moment the business cycle picks up a bit faster. It's slow across Europe, it's slow in the US. The forward-looking indicators are showing it going up. I mean, that probably ignites meme coins and brings a whole bunch of normies into meme coin casino because it's just gamification of attention and
Community.
internet memes. I mean, they get it.
Yeah.
And if their mates we've seen it before in every cycle, whether it's ICOs, if your mate is making a 50x, you are damn well opening an account and going to start trading because you can't bear it.
The other day, Murat Mammadov.
That's right.
Finally, Raoul makes a clear distinction between the sometimes confused notions of inflation and debasement. The increase in the price of goods and services is known as inflation, and the CPI measures this cyclical or occasionally structural phenomena. Debasement, on the other hand, is the gradual depreciation of currency value that has a more subtle effect on people's wealth. Pal explains how debasement increases wealth disparity by allowing the wealthy gain more wealth at the expense of the middle and poorer classes. Formerly more accessible assets like real estate are now out of reach for a large number of young people. He draws attention to the important chances this generation is missing out on, such as property ownership, which is essential to a successful financial existence. Their need for financial growth, something that traditional assets like the S&P 500 no longer seem to be able to provide, has led them to turn to risky investments like Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. It's interesting to note that Pal draws attention to the fact that a large number of younger investors nowadays are pursuing enormous profits rather than merely modest ones, frequently searching for 50x gains in assets like Bitcoin. This change in perspective is representative of the difficulties they have when trying to amass riches in the current economic climate. Pal also highlights recent developments in the cryptocurrency field, such as gaming platforms built on the Avalanche blockchain that may increase on-chain adoption by drawing in a fresh wave of users. Along with more established avenues like Bitcoin ETFs, he views this as one of the many underappreciated catalysts for the expansion of cryptocurrencies. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more deep dives into finance and cryptocurrency. Stay tuned for more insights from Raoul and other experts.